Welcome to the CowCast by Willard Jones Real Estate. In this weekly podcast, we explore the most hard-hitting commercial real estate stories, focusing on those that affect us, all of us, real estate professionals, executives, investors, friends, and fans. We'll also discuss some updates and features of our own, including new spaces, updates, tours, and photos. Plus, we'll always sprinkle in something fun to start your weekend off right. All stories and sources are linked in the show notes. So settle in, grab some Green River, and enjoy this week's CowCast. A recent report on the state of the office as of January 2022 found that although major companies are still delaying their plans to bring employees back into the office, such news isn't necessarily a nail in the cubicle. Listing rates for office space have begun increasing at nearly 2% higher than they were at the same time last year. Not only that, but office buildings are fetching higher prices across the country, including in Chicago, at nearly $300 per square foot. With millions of square feet of office space still under construction across the U.S., it appears that the tides are finally turning. In lieu of the big return or the big resignation, a healthy hybrid compromise appears to be the predictable future. Not only that, but office-using sectors of the labor market are also up nearly 4% year over year. Chicago is lagging a bit behind the rest of the Midwest, but is still faring better than the other regional markets like Southern California. With so many companies choosing to relocate or open new offices in Chicago, we can predict a concurrent increase in jobs and decrease in vacancy rates. In the meantime, pedestrian traffic, CTA ridership, hotel occupancy, and parking structure occupancy in the Loop hit a record high this past holiday season since the start of the pandemic. In fact, parking reservations are nearly at 100% of 2019 levels. Since you already paid that $16 minimum all-day parking fee, why not escape the cold for a bit and swing by one of our central Loop spaces for a quick tour? Just saying, there are worse ways to spend 20 minutes in the Loop. Like being stuck mid-commute on the Red Line because a horde of rats is blocking the tracks at Lake. Not that we're bitter or anything. Speaking of new jobs coming to Chicago, Fulton Market once again dominated headlines last week when it announced an enormous $600 million development consisting of office space, lab space, apartments, a hotel, and a fitness center at 1200 West Fulton Street. Zoning changes and financing are still big question marks over this project, but there's little doubt that lenders and tenants will be on board. On top of the 500 apartments, 200 hotel rooms, 500,000 square foot office building, 200,000 square foot life sciences center, and 200,000 square foot fitness center, the project will include plenty of public green space. Groundbreaking is estimated for May. Meanwhile, additional developments are continuing to, develop in Fulton Market, including several apartment buildings and a 530,000 square foot office building with an unnamed anchor tenant slated to take up 125,000 square feet of that space. Fulton Market has become Chicago's mini Silicon Valley, bursting with tech and entertainment companies that most often utilize the trendy local restaurants and bars that surround their office buildings. The area is primed for healthy work-life balance, a work hard, play hard mentality that's so popular in the startup world. If we've learned anything during this pandemic, it's that employees have to feel at home if they're going to go into the office, a dramatic departure from the cubicle to couch ways of the past. Because Fulton Market is so pedestrian-friendly and offers localized access to just about any cuisine or recreational activity one could possibly want, it's a highly desirable location for a post-pandemic workspace. If it sounds enticing, we've got a few spaces not far from there that we think you'll like. Check them out on the print version of the weekly wrap-up in your inbox right now. The Loop is looking pretty enticing right now, too. One company taking advantage of the Loop's increased attractiveness is Allstate, who bought 29 North Wacker for an undisclosed price, but somewhere in the range of $36 million. The building's use is unclear, but is likely to become Allstate's new headquarters as they consolidate their downtown offices. Meanwhile, their original Northbrook site is slated to be redeveloped into an industrial park. According to Crane's Chicago Business, quote, "If the Wacker Drive building becomes Allstate's new headquarters, it would be a much-needed show of confidence in the future of a downtown office market that has been hammered by the public health crisis and companies shrinking their office footprints," unquote. If Allstate does consolidate its offices into the 29 North Wacker location, it'll only be the latest in a trend of large companies showing a preference for buildings with smaller floor plates, which are better suited for a hybrid work model in which a certain percentage of full-time employees aren't in the office for a few days per week. Spaces under 10,000 square feet are the way of the future, folks. We don't want to say we told you so, but we told you so. This is the point in the CowCast where we share some lighthearted entertainment, partly for our own sanity, but also for your pure enjoyment. To start us off, we have a segment we like to call On This Week in History. This week's historical fact is a little different. In fact, maybe some of you even remember this one from back in the day. It was January 22nd, 1960, and on the front page of the Chicago Tribune was this story, and I quote, "Two space-hopping monkeys to wed, science dictates." A couple of space-hopping monkeys named Sam and Miss Sam are going to get married. The idea is to see whether spaceflight impairs their ability to propagate. Miss Sam was launched 9.5 miles into space, and Sam was fired 55 miles into space. Both monkeys apparently were fine in health. The article ends like this. "No date has been set for the mating, but it was understood that it will have to be delayed until Sam is a little older, because Miss Sam is older than he is." How scandalous and romantic. Finally, we wanted to give a shout out to a nonprofit near and dear to our hearts, Open Books in Logan Square. The bookshop is taking over an old furniture store on Milwaukee Avenue and will be stocked with a curated selection of donated books. Sales support literacy programs for children in underserved areas. You can donate books, buy specific books for children of all ages, volunteer, or learn more by going to open-books.org. As always, we'll link the site in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's CowCast. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter for daily Willard Jones content. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at WillardJonesCRE, and be sure to leave us a positive review on Spotify and Apple Music. If you're currently listening to this at home, let us help you find an office where you can listen to us on company time. Contact us at 312-263-8787 and at willardjones.com. Have a great weekend and stay safe. The CowCast is produced by Willard Jones Real Estate and is narrated by Amanda Friedlander. Views and ideas shared in this podcast are our own and are not representative of the publications mentioned in the podcast. Music and sound effects by freesound.org. Sources and links are located in the show notes.